Opening day is finally here, and I wanted to put in some predictions for this 2025 Major League Baseball season. After doing all the analysis, all the deep dives, I wanted to give you what I think is going to happen this year and show you that no matter how much you look into baseball, you're never going to be right. I'm going to do some quick team over-unders, division standings, award winners, and then I'll give you my World Series predictions at the end. Thank you guys all so much for the support on the deep dives. It's been really fun and really fulfilling to hear what some of you guys have to say. I won't waste your time here. Let's get into the first division. In the National League West, I went with the Los Angeles Dodgers winning the division. I know, chalky, I apologize. Arizona Diamondbacks, I have finishing second and making a wild card. I do have the Padres finishing third here in a bit of a disappointing standing, but I think there's a lot of questions on the team. I have the San Francisco Giants at fourth and the Colorado Rockies here in fifth place. For the Dodgers, I have them going under their 103.5 win over under total. I think they'll win 100 games, 101 games, 104 is just so much for me. Andy Pages is an arrow up player, a guy that I think is going to have a solid season and be above some of the projections. Zyhir Hope is one of my favorite prospects in all of baseball, definitely a guy to watch this season. I'm a bit down on Tommy Edman. Some of the hard hit numbers aren't very good for him, and I don't think he can recreate what he did in the playoffs last season over a full 162. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, I have them going over their 86.5 win total. Brandon Pfaadt, I expect to have a pretty big season here in Arizona. Really excited for Yilber Diaz. I think he's going to contribute to this team. Jake McCarthy, really tough on the metrics for me. I don't think he's going to be able to repeat what he did last season. I have a bit of a disappointing year in San Diego, under their 85.5 win total. I am really up on Jake Cronenworth. I liked a lot of what I saw in his hard hit rates. Cobb Hightower, one of my favorite prospects in the game right now. Excited to see him debut this year. And then Robert Suarez, the FIP is really high for him. Some of the metrics weren't great. I think he might be a little worse this season. I do have the Giants under their 80.5 win total, but I don't think it'll be by much. I have a big arrow up on Grant McCray. I think he'll have a good season in the majors. Dakota Jordan, really excited to see another year in the minors for him. And then kind of down on Tyler Fitzgerald offensively this season, although he is a very solid defender and will contribute to this team. For the Rockies, I did it. I went on the over 58.5 wins. Michael Toglia, I think, is going to have a big year in Colorado. Robert Kalaz, one of my favorite prospects in their system. And then Hunter Goodman, it feels kind of tough to say you're down on anybody on the Rockies, but he had a really big spring, and I don't know if he's going to be able to produce those numbers in the major leagues this year. In the American League West, yes, I have the Seattle Mariners winning this division and being the only playoff team in the American League West. I think this is their year. I'm really in on the pitching. Texas, I have finishing second. Some of the injury stuff does kind of scare me, and I think the lineup can be a bit thin at the end. The A's, I have making a big jump this year, finishing third in the AL West. The Astros, I have at fourth. I know this is going to come back and bite me. I just get really scared by the back end of that lineup. The rotation, there's definitely some questions, and I think the front end of the bullpen is interesting. The Angels, I actually don't have having a bad season, but I think this is a pretty solid division in 2025. For the Mariners, over on 84.5 wins, big arrow up on Ryan Bliss. I think he's going to have a very good season. I'm super excited to watch CJ in the minor leagues this year as a switch pitcher. And Victor Robles, I don't think he's going to repeat what he did in Seattle last season. A lot of the metrics point towards that. For Texas, I do have them under 86.5 wins, but I don't think it'll be by much. I have Marcus Semien with a big arrow up. I think offensively, a good season for him this year. Emiliano Teodo, I think, is going to contribute to this major league team very soon. Jonah Heim, I think, is going to be a bit more of what we saw last year than what we saw in 2023. For the A's, I have them well over their win total of 71.5. Big on a lot of guys on this offense, but I think Michael Otonez is going to have a very good reliever season this year. Really big on Denzel Clark as a prospect in the system. Luis Severino, I don't know if he's going to have as good of a season as he's projected to. Some of the metrics don't really point towards that, but I think he could still have a good year. For the Astros, I have them under their 87.5 win total. Spencer Arrighetti, I have with a big time arrow up. Really excited for his season. Miguel Yalala, I think he's going to pitch this year for the Astros, and I think he will be a very good major league player. I'm a bit down on Jeremy Pena. I think he's had a couple tough seasons at the plate, and I think that trend kind of continues into 2025. For the Angels, I do have them over their 71.5 win total this year. Jose Soriano, I have with an arrow up. Love watching his starts. I think he's a really good pitcher. Sam Aldeguerri, I think, is going to contribute to this Angels team this season. Luis Rengifo, I do have an arrow down on him. Really solid season in a small sample for him, but I don't expect that to happen this year. In the NL Central, I have the Brewers winning the division. Really like this roster. The Chicago Cubs, I have them finishing at second, but making the playoffs as a wild card team. Really big on a couple guys on Pittsburgh this year. I didn't think I'd have them this high, but I do have them finishing third. St. Louis is kind of in a weird transition phase right now. Not really sure what to do with their team. They seem like they're going to trade a couple guys, so I have them at fourth. I could see a big year from Cincinnati. I think this might come back to bite me, but given this division, I do have them at fifth. For the Brewers, I went over on 83.5 wins. This always happens to Milwaukee. They're always super low on the win total for them. I have a big year for Joey Ortiz ahead at shortstop. Caleb Durbin, I think, is going to contribute a lot to this team this year. I am a bit down on Aaron Savale. Not certain that he's really going to live up to his billing as the 3-starter in this rotation. For the Cubs, I have them over their 85.5 win total. Not by too much, though. I think they're just going to sneak into the playoffs. Porter Hodge, big arrow up on him. Excited to see him this season. Jack Neely has some great pitches. I think he'll pitch for the Cubs this year. But I am down on Jameson Taillon, not really seeing it. I think the season he had last year was not really repeatable given what he gave. I have Pittsburgh going over their 77.5 win total. I'm a big arrow up on O'Neal Cruz, even though he's a very solid player already. I think he's going to have a breakout season. Big on Thomas Harrington, one of my favorite pitching prospects in baseball. Definitely a guy to watch on the Major League roster. David Bednar, I think the struggles are going to kind of continue for him. Haven't really seen much of anything this spring that would change my mind. For the Cardinals, I have them just under their win total at 76.5. Brendan Donovan, I think, is going to have a very good offensive season this year. Big on Tink Hence, think he'll be a big contributor to this team. And sadly, down arrow on Nolan Arenado, even though I love him as a player, a lot of the things that he did offensively last year just I don't think are sustainable to be Nolan Arenado. For the Reds, I'm pretty low on them this year, under the 78.5 win total. I am very high on Nick Lodolo, though. I think he's going to have a solid season. Love Sal Stewart. I want to see him up in the majors soon. The metrics on Brady Singer, I just don't really understand. I don't think that he was a 3-some ERA pitcher last year, and I think he might take a bit of a hit. In a very good division now, I think. I have two teams making the playoffs here in the Minnesota Twins and the Kansas City Royals, the Twins winning the division. Love the high-end talent on both of these teams. I think the Twins are one of the most talented teams in baseball. Just got to stay healthy. The Guardians, I do have missing the playoffs. I'm really scared about the lineup, although I do love the pitching. Detroit, you could say the same exact thing about. Love their bullpen. I think a lot of their starters are good. And then I'm not even really going to say too much about the White Sox. I don't think they can compete this year. For the Twins, I have them well over their win total at 84.5. Bailey Ober, big time arrow up. Might be a sneaky Cy Young guy. I love Emmanuel Rodriguez, one of my favorite prospects in the entire league. Chris Paddock, I do have an arrow down on. He is the 5 starter. Didn't like a lot of the stuff that I saw from him in spring either. For the Royals, over their 83.5 win total, making the playoffs. I can't quit Maikel Garcia. I just love him, man. Blake Mitchell is a prospect to watch. I can't quit lefty good hitting catchers in the minors either, I guess. Seth Lugo, I am a bit of an arrow down on him. I don't think the metrics pointed towards the season he had last year, although I do think he's a good pitcher. I don't think he's a 3 ERA guy. For the Guardians, just a bit under their 82.5 win total. I do think Manzardo is going to have a really big season as the DH against righties, though. I love me some Churios, so I'm going to be watching Jason Churio all year. Lane Thomas, a bit of an arrow down, mostly because of the defense. I do think he could take a step back, though, offensively. Also went with the under on the Tigers. Really big on Casey Mize, though. I think he's had some really bad batted ball luck, and I think he's going to have a good year. I love Max Clark. He's definitely a guy to watch. Won't be in the majors this year, but should shoot up those rankings. And Gleyber Torres, a bit down on him. Obviously, the defense isn't great, but the offensive profile wasn't great for him last year either. For the White Sox, yes, over 53.5 wins. I really like Sean Burke. He's actually their opening day starter, so I think he'll have a good year. A bit chalky on the prospect pick with Noah Schultz. I just love Noah Schultz. I think he's going to be so good. And then arrow down on their one starter, Martin Perez. The metrics just weren't really good for him last year, and I don't know if he's going to be the one starter by the end of the season. In the NL East, yes, I did it. I do have the Mets missing the playoffs. Please don't kill me if you're a Mets fan. I think these three teams are going to beat up on each other, and I do think one of these teams is going to miss it this year. I really like the Braves. I'm big on their offense stepping back this year, and I can't quit that rotation. I think the Phillies' high-end talent is very good, and they have a very good rotation as well. I do have questions about the Mets rotation, and the bullpen just a little bit, even though I know it is a David Stearns team. Solid on the Nationals this year, although I don't think this is their step year, and the Marlins are going to be in last place. On the Braves, big on Matt Olson. I'm expecting a huge season from him this year offensively. Drake Baldwin, obviously a prospect to watch, going to be starting as the catcher here. Shout out again, Madison, Wisconsin. And then Ozzie Albies, a bit of an arrow down. The metrics kind of sucked for him last year. I'm well over this 93.5 win total. I think the Braves might fight to be the 1 seed in the playoffs this year. For the Phillies, I have them just under their 91.5 win total, but definitely making the playoffs. Alec Bohm, I have as an arrow up guy. I saw his metrics and I liked a lot of what I saw. Eduardo Tate, really excited to watch him, a young catching prospect with a good bat. Trey Turner, definitely some warning signs there. I don't think he's going to have an 807 OPS this year. With the Mets, I went under their 90.5 win total. I am very big on Kodai Senga this year though, and I think he's going to have a very good season. Really like Ryan Clifford, a guy that I think could contribute to this team sooner rather than later, and I am a bit down on David Peterson. The metrics weren't great for him, and I really think he overperformed his expected numbers last year. For the Nats, I'm even more up on James Wood than I think a majority of the people are, even though he's a common breakout pick. I think he's going to be awesome this year. Seaver King, first round pick, a guy that you definitely are going to need to watch if you're a Nats fan. CJ Abrams, the defense is just too much of a question for me at shortstop, and offensively, he needs to take a big step for that to really not be an issue. I went with the over on 72.5 wins. I think they'll win around 75, 76 games this season. And then for the Marlins, I went with the under 63.5 wins. I think they're sneaky going to be the worst team in baseball this year. Jesus Sanchez, though, I think he finally breaks out this year. I think this is the year. Davison De Los Santos, a guy that I think will be contributing to the Marlins this year. Tough to pick an arrow down guy on this team, but Jonah Bride had some really good numbers last year. I don't think he repeats that in 2025. Finally, in the AL East, 3 playoff teams. I do have the Orioles winning this division. Love the lineup. Think there's a lot of bounce backs that can happen there. Red Sox, I do have finishing above the Yankees and making the playoffs, being the 2 here. The Yankees 3rd. I am a little scared about the injuries. Scared about the pitching, definitely with Boston, but I think they can cover it up with how good of a lineup they have. The Rays I have with a solid season, but just missing out on the playoffs and being below these 3 teams. And then the Blue Jays, I'm just really scared about how old that rotation is. The lineup gets thin really quickly, and I think they might have a tough year in 2025, although I could see them making a playoff run. For the Orioles, over on the 87.5 wins. I think they win 92, 93 games this year and the division. Jackson Holiday, big arrow up on. I think he's going to have a good season. I think it's kind of become common to hate him after how tough of a year he had last year. Enrique Bradfield, I know a big name, but a guy that I think will contribute to this major league team pretty soon. Just a tick down on Charlie Morton this year. He is getting older, and the Mets have gone down a bit year by year. For the Red Sox, over their 86.5 win total. I think Tristan Casas is going to have a big year. Watch Conrad Kaysen. There's a bunch of guys obviously in the system, but a two-way player, a shortstop, and a starting pitcher. And then if you watch the deep dive on Walker Buehler, I'm definitely an arrow down on him. I think his season last year was very tough. $21.1 million for him this year. For the Yankees, I have them just under their 89.5 win total, maybe 88, 87 games. Jazz Chisholm, I think, is going to have a big year in the Bronx this year. Everson Pereira, a guy that got hurt last season, missed a majority of the year. Look for him to potentially contribute to this team. And then Oswaldo Cabrera, I think it might have a tough year offensively. I really like him off the bench, and he looks like he's going to be the starting third baseman for this team. For the Rays, I have them over 81.5 wins. I think they might win 84, 85 games this year. I'm way up on Junior Caminero. I think he might be a guy that's in some dark horse MVP talks by the end of this season. Love Xavier Isaac. Big time swing on him. Look out for his minor league numbers this year. Am a bit down on Zach Littell. The metrics weren't great for him, and he had a good season last year. Don't know if he can repeat that necessarily in 2025. And then finally for the Jays, I have them under 78.5 wins. Alejandro Kirk, I do have having a good season this year. Just got extended. Hopefully the offense comes back a little bit. Arjun Namala is a prospect to watch. One of their top 3 guys, but a guy that had a very good year last year. Expecting some more this season. And then Chris Bassett, really tough metrics for him last year. Think he might be a little down from seasons past. Into National League Rookie of the Year, I do have Dylan Cruz winning this. I think he has a really high floor with how good of a defensive outfielder he is and how good his base running is. If that hitting can come just a little bit, I think he definitely is a shoe-in for this award. A couple dark horses I have here. Agustin Ramirez for the Marlins. If he comes up early, I think he could really contribute to that Marlins team. And then Quinn Matthews as a starter in St. Louis. Definitely some rotation questions, and something that I could see happening is him coming up and replacing a lot of the innings. There were a bunch of guys in consideration for this. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm just going to give you my picks right away. So many good rookies in the AL. I wanted to go Kristen Campbell, wanted to go Kumar Rocker, but I'm going to roll with Jackson Jobe. Just love what I've seen from him. In terms of dark horses, Alan Rodin is a big time one, a huge bat there for the Blue Jays. And then Carson Williams, if he does come up for the Rays this year, I think he could be very good taking over that shortstop spot. and could make a back-end run at this Rookie of the Year race. Chalky, I know. I'm going with Paul Skeens to win the National League Cy Young. Wanted to pick Zach Wheeler, but I had to go with Paul Skeens going back and looking at some of the numbers. Some dark horses for this award. Christopher Sanchez, I think, might have a nasty season. And speaking of nasty, Nestor Cortez Jr. in Milwaukee. Go take a look at his career numbers for a couple seconds and then think about how good of a pitching lab Milwaukee has. I'm going with Logan Gilbert in the AL Cy Young. I had it as Scooble for a really long time, but going back and looking at some of the stuff, I think Gilbert might have a shot this year. Definitely a bunch of other guys in consideration, but I'm going with Gilbert to win the award here. Couple dark horses that I do really like in the AL. Ryan Pepio, now that McClanahan is going to miss some time, is going to have to step up and really be a horse in this rotation. And Gavin Williams, I want to say right now that I was on it before he has an incredible season this year. Gavin Williams is going to be a very good pitcher going forward. As long as Shohei Ohtani's in the game, you really just have to pick him for the most valuable player in his league. Really wanted to roll with Fernando Tatis Jr., but I went back and looked at the Ohtani stats, and it's like, man, how does anybody else win it over him? Although I do think Jackson Chourio is a dark horse, I also went with William Contreras. The hard hit numbers, go check them out. I think if the defense takes a step back, we might be talking about a really good season for Contreras. And then Austin Riley, some of the numbers were just not what he put up last year in terms of the metrics. I think we're going to be seeing a pretty big year from Austin Riley in 2025. In the American League, didn't go with Aaron Judge. I went with Bobby Witt Jr. I wanted to go Gunnar Henderson, but the injuries are really a concern for me right now. Bobby Witt Jr. just has such a high floor, and that offensive potential is definitely there. Although if Judge wins this, I apologize because I should have seen it coming. Two dark horses, don't know if they're necessarily super dark horses, but J-Rod I have as a big one. If he gets off to a good start, he could definitely be in this consideration. And then Riley Green, not a big floor guy, but I think the offensive profile is definitely there for him to push those WAR numbers offensively. I did not go chalky, though, with the World Series matchup. Atlanta Braves and Seattle Mariners I have as my World Series matchup here. I'm just so big on this lineup and rotation in Atlanta. I think they're all going to take steps back. They're going to get Strider and Acuna back this season. And man, I just cannot quit the Mariners pitching. I really like the bullpen. I think the rotation is the best in baseball, and I think there's so many pieces there offensively. Please, Seattle, please don't prove me wrong. And I have the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series this season in 6 games. I think there's so much to like on this roster, and really when I did the deep dives was one of the teams that I was looking at to really have some positive regression to the mean offensively. I think the Braves are going to have a great season in 2025. I want to say thank you guys for supporting the deep dive so much on this channel. I'm going to be pushing out a lot of content during the baseball season. Please let me know how wrong you think I am in the comments. I know 90% of these are going to be so far off base. Also, let me know in the comments what type of content you want to see me do during the regular season. I'll definitely be listening to you guys. And thank you again so much for the support. The subscribers growing a bit by bit every day. It's just really fun to be able to put out content for you guys. Thank you so much. These are my season predictions for the 2025 Major League Baseball season.